kafir. If you doubt the Prophet ﷺ for a second, you're a full-fledged kafir. Get the heck out of my house. Don't even think about it.
He realized that the video went viral.
That Sheikh Asim Halakim video went viral everywhere, bro. I think overall, that clip was good for me, bad for him, and bad for the Ummah. So overall, it was bad. Did not anticipate that backlash at all. I don't think he answered that question well. I don't think he was taking me seriously. And to be honest, I think he was a little bit arrogant in the way he answered it.
I mean, how awesome is that? That's SNEAKO. Yeah, see, he's a bit arrogant. He just called him arrogant, said he did damage to the Ummah with that.
So speaking of Ali Dawah, yes, he thought that he could, we'll clear that out for you.
There was a question that we asked.
So there's a hadith that I read that I've been struggling with, and the hadith reads, the Prophet Muhammad said that people of Yemen are the best of people. And when I read that, it's conflicting because the reason I became Muslim is because it gets rid of racial supremacy. There's a hadith from the Prophet where he says that there's no race that's superior than the other.
That's when SNEAKO highlights the problem. He saes that one of the reasons why he came to Islam was because it defeats racial supremacy.
There'd be no racial supremacy within Islam, but also the people of Yemen be the best people. First thing, alhamdulillah. That's a great question.
You catch that? That's a great question. That's a great question. Sheikh Uthman is a total manipulator, right? He's a total manipulator and a grifter. And when they see a situation like this, oh, here's a chance for me to one-up Sheikh Asim and look better than him when it comes to SNEAKO and his followers. No. Islam welcomes questions. It welcomes questions. What a great question. So he's butting up. He's the good guy. Sheikh Asim is the bad guy. That's what's going on here.
Exactly. But watch what Uthman does with the answer here.
So the first thing is the hadith you're referencing. There is a problem in the chain. Sayyid is a tabi'i. Okay. He's the one that reports this from Abu Huraira. Al-Haythami, one of the early scholars who reported the hadith, said that the Rijal are all good except the fact that Sa'id ibn Musayyib never met Abu Huraira. So there's a break in between those two.
He's doing a number of things here, made a number of mistakes. I just kind of noted them here, but we're going to get into them more in detail in a bit. But so he's essentially saying that, as is the case with many hadith, there's so many different versions of a particular hadith and how it's worded. And he's saying that, that particular wording of the hadith that starts with, the people of Yemen are the best of all people. It goes on, it says, and faith is Yemeni and wisdom is Yemeni and things like that. He's like, there's another version of that hadith that doesn't have that phrase, the people of Yemen are the best of all people. And that appears in, Sahih Muslim and Al-Bukhari. And so if you look in those ones, it doesn't include that line. And so actually, if you look at the chain for that hadith that says that the people of Yemen are the best of people, that there's actually a problem there, because the person who Uthman claims is narrating the hadith, which is Abu Huraira, gets it from someone called Sa'id bin Musayyib, who doesn't actually have a connection to Abu Huraira. Actually, he's saying like there's a break in the chain. So because there's a break in the chain there's a problem there. Let's go to the one in Muslim or the one in Bukhari, which doesn't include that line because it's a stronger chain. So that's what he's arguing here. Al-Haythami weakened the hadith. Why? Because he says that two of the people in the chain didn't meet each other. We're going to ask the question, did Al-Haythami actually weaken the chain? And who are the narrators for this hadith? Is it who he's saying? We have Al-Haythami here.
Okay.
And what he says is that actually all of the men, all the narrators are trustworthy. So here's the translation of it here.
Okay, so remember what Uthman said? He said that there was a problem in the chain, so that's why Haythami wasn't good with it. Now Haythami here, the translation, he says it was all good. The added bit that he said, except for the break in the chain, isn't there. You're not going to find it. You're never going to find Haythami saying it for that hadith.
For those people, you're never going to find him saying that there's a break in the chain because Abu Huraira didn't know Sa'id bin Musayyib.
Yeah.
He never says that. So here's the hadith.
So the hadith says, the Messenger of Allah was presenting horses one day, and someone called Unayn, he came and he was with Muhammad. So the Messenger of Allah said to him, so Muhammad showed off to the guy. He said, I am more skilled with horses than you. Okay. So Uyayna said, and I am more skilled with men than you, which I know it sounds gay, but in the Arabic actually says,
David came back at the perfect time.
Yeah. What did I miss here?
So Muhammad's like, I know I'm more skilled at horses than you are. And he's like, well, I'm more skilled with men than you are.
So I know it sounds gay, but in the Arabic, it actually means that he's more skilled with like being perceptive with the character of a man.
Yeah. Like he knows men better, right? And so then Muhammad's like,
because we all know that Muhammad would be the most skilled with men in that way. Right?
He's like, have you seen me in Dahya? Like, come on, man.
So Muhammad has to one up him.
So he tests him. He's like, oh, how is that? how do you know men more than me?
And then he said, the best of men are men who carry their swords upon their shoulders, making their spears rest upon the necks of their horses, wearing cloaks from the people of Najd. So he's saying, basically men who are warriors are the best of men.
And Muhammad said, you liar.
So Muhammad said, you lie. It's actually Yemeni men that are the best of men. And that's where it comes from.
So he says, Al-Haythami gets this hadith from Abu Huraira. Well, who does he actually get the hadith from?
Actually, the hadith comes from somebody called Amr ibn Abasa. It doesn't come from Abu Huraira in this version.
In this version. So Al-Haythami never says this comes from Abu Huraira. And in the chain, there's a guy called Sa'id bin al-Musayyib. And by the way, they never met each other, so therefore it's not reliable. It's not a reliable chain. Never says that at all. That's complete fabrication.
All that was made up.
Yes.
All that was made up. That's
hang on. Going back to you guys pointing out that this had already become an issue. Sheikh Uthman is swooping in to correct Sheikh Asim al-Hakim and show that SNEAKO has nothing to worry about, but he has time, plenty of time to do his research, and he comes in and he's ready, and you're saying he's completely wrong, and he's not even talking about the correct chain of narrators.
Yeah, exactly.
Not at all. He's mixing it with another chain, which is also sahih. So this one is sahih, and another one is sahih. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. So let's be clear. So he claims that Al-Haythami dismissed this hadith because he said Abu Huraira is in the chain, and Abu Huraira supposedly was getting it narrated. Supposedly the guy who was narrating it from Abu Huraira is Sa'id bin Musayyib, and Sa'id bin Musayyib never met him. He never says that. That's complete fabrication. Now, there's another hadith that's related to this one, and this is in a book about 40 different hadith about people of Yemen. And so this is
that's the one I've seen. This is the one I've seen right here.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So check this one out, and then there's a little note here that we thought was important to add, because there is something that's weak in this, but it's not what you think. So we'll just read this one now, because it's a little bit different story than the other one, but here's
yes, this is from Musnad Ahmad, which Uthman ibn Fibn did mention.
Yeah, he did mention
Musnad Ahmad. Okay, so the hadith says, the people of Yemen are on the verge of ascending upon you as if they are clouds. They are the best people on earth. So the men from the Ansar, which are the helpers in Medina, said, aren't we, O Messenger of Allah,
what about us?
the best?
What about us?
Then Muhammad was silent. Then he said again, aren't we, Messenger of Allah? Then Muhammad was silent again. Then he said the third time, aren't we, O Messenger of Allah? Then Muhammad said the third time in a low volume, yeah, except you.
Meaning like, hey, you guys are included. You're equal to people of Yemen. But that's actually the weak part.
Guess which part is weak? The except you part.
Yeah.
So the part that SNEAKO would actually like.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. So that's not that. So that's in the Arabic there, the illa antum, except you.
Yeah.
So hang on.
Same reference here. Yeah, same reference here.
Oh, just to recap. So Sheikh Uthman was saying that there's a portion of the hadith that's weak, but when you go to the actual hadith, it's a different part that's weak.
Yeah. So the part that would actually, you could
help
actually,
out.
it would actually help in a sense, is the weak part.
So you see how he mixed up everything?
He mixed up absolutely
all the
everything.
narratives to make it suit him, and it's all lies.
Yeah. And so here's the reference here from Ahmad bin Hanbal again. It's the same exact thing that we showed earlier, and then again the same footnote is there saying like in a secondary narration it's weak, but he says except you. So he's like including the Ansar, saying you guys are included. You're also the best, but
yeah, because he said it in a low volume, so not as many people heard.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have here Imam Ahmad. He narrated the hadith from who?
From Amr ibn Abasa, not from Abu Huraira or Sa'id ibn Musayyib or any of the names he mentioned.
And did he ever weaken it?
He never weakened it, and he never mentioned any break in the chain.
Okay, so that's what we want to point out. So Imam Ahmad, who he cited, never weakened the hadith, and he never said that it came from Abu Huraira.
And he never mentioned any break in the chain from anyone.
Nor Al-Haythami did he ever mention that it comes from Abu Huraira and that there's a break because Sa'id doesn't know him or whatever, or they didn't meet. And he never weakens it for that. There's a couple different chains he gives, and the one that we were just looking at, he says completely, all the men are authentic and strong. So now he mentioned Sahih Muslim, because remember he said this is a strong chain. Mm-hmm. So this one's really important because, again, we got to pay attention to this part, because he said that the one that we just showed you guys now is weak because there's a problem in the chain. Well, we just saw there that there was no problem with the chain, but the reason that he says it's a problem with the chain is because Abu Huraira was narrating it from Muhammad, and then this guy called Sa'id was narrating it from Abu Huraira, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's saying, therefore, the chain in Sahih Muslim is stronger because because that's what he thinks. So let's just recap that one more time.
The riwayah in Sahih Muslim, it mentions al-iman al-yaman wal-hikmah yamaniyya. Yani that iman is a sifa from the people of Yemen, and wisdom is something that is from Yemen.
Okay, so if you go to sunnah.com and you type in the corrected Arabic of what he said, you'll get the identical thing about 3 hits. Okay. Now it's interesting. So let's just ask the question one more time before we narrow in on these, because his point is that the one in Muslim doesn't include that sentence, doesn't include the phrase that says that the best of people are the men of Yemen. He's saying that doesn't appear there. Okay. So why does he tell SNEAKO that he shouldn't doubt, and why did he say you should reject the hadith? Let's focus on this part one more time. Why should SNEAKO reject it? Why? What does he say?
This riwayah, there is a problem in the chain. Sa'id ibn Musayyib is a tabi'i. He's the one that reports this from Abu Huraira. Sa'id ibn Musayyib never met Abu Huraira. So there's a break in between those two. Right?
So is that clear? That's why SNEAKO should reject that hadith, because Abu Huraira supposedly never met Sa'id ibn Musayyib, right? That's what he says. And so therefore, because those two are in the chain together, there's a problem with the hadith, right?
Everyone got that? Everyone got that? So if anyone's new, there is a method of how they come to trust their stories, and it's because they have a reliable list of names. And where'd you get that story from? I got it from so-and-so. Well, where'd he get it from? Well, he got it from so-and-so. Well, where he'd get it from? So he got it from so-and-so. And the idea is to go back to a companion of Muhammad and to have this chain of transmitters. And so you've got, on the list of transmitters, you've got Abu Huraira and then the guy who heard it from him. And Sheikh Uthman says, but these two never met. And therefore it's a break. And therefore, SNEAKO, you have nothing to worry about. You can't trust this hadith. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Now, remember how we said that there's about 3 hadith that are in Sahih Muslim that are almost identical to what he said, except in the corrected Arabic. Let's look at those. Let's look at one of them in particular. And let's see the chain. Well, let's read the hadith and see the chain.
Okay, so the hadith says, there came the people of Yemen, they are tender of feelings, meek of hearts. The belief of the Yemenites, the sagety is of that of the Yemenites. So
that's the part he was quoting, or trying to quote in Arabic.
Yeah, the belief is Yemeni and the wisdom is Yemeni.
He said we should trust the one in Sahih Muslim. Let's look at the chain though.
So the chain is...
you start in the bottom and then you kind of work...
Muhammad, Abu Huraira and Sa'id ibn Musayyib. The 2 people that he said... Never met. But they're actually in a Sahih chain here.
Hang on.
In the ones you appeal to.
Yeah, guys, everyone catching this. So the actual hadith that is giving SNEAKO a problem has a different chain of transmission. Is that correct so far?
Yeah.
Okay. The actual hadith that is bothering SNEAKO has a Sahih chain of transmission. But then when Sheikh Uthman responds to it, he says, no. There's actually a break in the chain. You can't trust it because in the chain, you've got Abu Huraira and Sa'id bin al-Musayyib is getting it from him. These guys never met, so you can't trust the hadith, even though that's not the chain in the hadith that SNEAKO had a problem with. But you do find that actual chain, and it's the one he's saying that people should trust, the version in Sahih Muslim. So this is the version in Sahih Muslim, and it has the chain that he says you can't trust. And so he's ignoring the one he's ignoring the chain. He's ignoring the chain in the actual hadith that SNEAKO has a problem with. And he's saying, no, you have to go to the version in Sahih Muslim that you can trust. And it's the one that's got the chain that he says you can't trust. And it's Sahih. It's in Sahih Muslim.
That's correct.
Exactly.
It's in the gray, by the way.
They don't usually translate that part.
Yeah, in the gray Arabic. Because there's so many names, they just skip straight to the hadith.
Yeah, but that's on sunnah.com. You guys can see it there. And
it's going to get even wilder.
And this is when we're going to have to ask you guys, like, what is going on here? Because we don't actually know, because Uthman does like a complete, you'll see what happens. So we have... a Sayuti here, he makes a note and he says that the most correct chain of transmission for Abu Huraira actually includes Sa'id ibn Musayyib. So far from it being weak, he's actually the most authentic one to narrate from Abu Huraira, actually.
Yeah, so actually, whenever you see Sa'id ibn Musayyib and Abu Huraira in one chain, it's the best authentic narration.
Hang on. Whoa.
Yeah.
You're saying that Sheikh Uthman, who has a degree in hadith methodology, he's saying that you can't trust hadiths that are narrated by this guy because he never met Abu Huraira. But that's what Sheikh Uthman is saying. You can't trust hadiths that are narrated from this guy because he never actually met Abu Huraira. Therefore, those hadiths would be weak. And you're pointing out that this is the guy who's actually the best narrator from Abu Huraira.
Exactly.
That's why he made it in Sahih Muslim.
Exactly.
And isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? I mean, it seems like, you're throwing a Muslim under the bus here. You're throwing the most respected transmitter from Abu Huraira. You're throwing him under the bus just to deal with the objection of some guy in his 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Wow, that's how he treats Islam, guys. That's how he treats Islam. There's a person who has a doubt. Let me throw a respected Muslim under the bus.
Yeah, and so as you guys are probably getting that this is actually not true, that they actually did meet each other, like Saeed and Abu Hurairah, and they must have met. And let's just, like David said, let's just emphasize on this point one more time. Who's Uthman? What does he have degrees in?
I graduated from the Islamic University of Islamabad with a master's focused in hadith.
Okay, so master's focused on hadith, and one of the most prolific transmitters of hadith is Abu Hurairah, and one of Abu Hurairah's best transmitters of hadith is Sayyid bin al-Musayyib. Now, here's where things go really crazy, but let's listen one more time, listen to this.
This riwayah, there is a problem in the chain. Sa'id ibn Musayyib is a tabi'i. Okay. He's the one that reports this from Abu Hurairah. Sa'id ibn Musayyib never met Abu Hurairah.
Never met.
So there's a break in between those two. Yeah. Right?
Okay, he never met him. All right. Now, interestingly, Uthman has actually a video where he's giving a talk on Sayyid bin al-Musayyib, and let's see what he says in this talk.
That talk was from last year.
Yeah, let me, one more time. There's the date. There you go.
One second. January 2024, so a little over a year ago.
Yep. Now, watch what he says here. Remember what he told SNEAKO?
Uh-huh.
What did he tell SNEAKO?
They never met.
Now, watch who Sayyid really is.
Sa'id ibn Musayyib, that is correct. Barakallah feek, Umar. Allahumma barak lak, and Allah increase you in your barak. Sa'id ibn Musayyib, one of the reasons that he is very well acquainted with ahadith and reporting is because of who he married. He married the daughter of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu.
He did what? He married the daughter of Abu Hurairah. Uthman said to SNEAKO they never met.
Wait, so this is Abu Hurairah's son-in-law.
Son-in-law.
Yeah.
And wait. So and there's this additional issue that when Sheikh Uthman is saying, "Oh, you can't trust Saeed bin al-Musayyib. You can't trust that guy. He never met Abu Hurairah. So SNEAKO, you no longer have to worry." And you guys are pointing out, "Hey, this guy's got some problems here." You have to wonder: is he ignorant? Did he make a mistake? Did he look up something? Did he do a bad job looking something up? So was he just ignorant and he made a mistake and he skipped that day of class at his hadith school? Or is he just flat out lying? He knows that Saeed al-Musayyib is the best transmitter from Abu Hurairah. He knows that, but he's lying to SNEAKO just to come out on top and impress all SNEAKO's fans and get one up on Sheikh Asim al-Hakim. And so what you just showed here is he knows exactly who Saeed bin al-Musayyib is. He knows exactly how he's connected to Abu Hurairah, which means that he was just flat out lying to SNEAKO's face to get to do away with his little doubt that he's having and impress his fans. He's just flat out lying when he's talking to SNEAKO. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And he even goes into a little bit more detail, but it's exactly what it is. Here we go. Let's.
Now, imagine when you have a father-in-law like Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah is the one that narrated the most ahadith of anybody from the Sahaba radiallahu.
The most hadith.
And that's his father-in-law. So when he was somebody who was always around such a person, then he would memorize those ahadith from his father-in-law and from his wife and from the other Sahaba, and he became one of the most narrators of hadith amongst the tabi'un, because his father-in-law was the greatest narrator of hadith from the Sahaba radiallahu.
So to SNEAKO, they never met. Kind of reminds me of Yasser Qadi a little bit, like when you talk about the preservation of the Quran, when he's got like a Muslim audience and he has like a non-Muslim audience. Mm-hmm. Complete opposite worlds.
Said they were always around each other.
Yeah.
Everyone, did you just catch that? So this is Sheikh Uthman when he's talking to a group of Muslims who are not doubting something. And he says, Saeed here is the guy you can trust most when it comes to these hadiths from Abu Hurairah because he was his son-in-law. He's hearing it from the man himself. That's why Saeed bin al-Musayyib is as good as gold. That's the guy you can trust. If you want to know anything from Abu Hurairah, go to Saeed bin al-Musayyib. This is the golden child. This is the one to learn everything from Abu Hurairah. And then SNEAKO says, I have a doubt about this hadith. And then Sheikh Uthman gives the wrong chain and then throws Saeed bin al-Musayyib under the bus and says, you cannot trust this guy with hadiths from Abu Hurairah. He doesn't know anything because he never even met the guy. He never even met Abu Hurairah, even though he knows this guy is Abu Hurairah's son-in-law. And he says in this video, he was around him all the time. That's why you can trust him. In which case, that means 100% indisputable, grade A lie. he told to SNEAKO. He lied right to him and threw a Muslim that he regards as completely trustworthy under the bus and made him unreliable just to do away with one of SNEAKO's doubts.
Yeah, exactly.
My goodness. This is Dawah, ladies and gentlemen, lying to people.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's other works that we saw when we were researching this and trying to get sources. And they basically all said the same thing, that he is the most authoritative go-to on the hadith of Abu Hurairah because they're family, like it's a son-in-law.
Yeah, he didn't need to go to a book. He went to the guy's house.
Exactly.
His family to him. And that man met Muhammad, Abu Hurairah.
So
the chain is as good as gold. It's like the sun.
Yeah.
When you see Abu Hurairah and Sayyid Musayyib together. So if the fact that he said there's a break because that they never met is like another blasphemy in Muslim terms, because it's almost as bad as him mispronouncing the Quran. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, I thought it was bad enough that he's throwing Sheikh Asim al-Hakim under the bus when Asim al-Hakim was completely correct. And then Sheikh Uthman has to misrepresent the Quran to pretend that SNEAKO's totally fine, having doubts about things Muhammad said, when he's not. Sheikh Asim was correct, but Sheikh Uthman, so I was like, wow, it's messed up that these guys are throwing Sheikh Asim al-Hakim under the bus. But now they're throwing Abu Hurairah's son-in-law under the bus.
Yeah, and it's just so wild because like this guy's got a master's in hadith, and like he said, this is one of the most prolific hadith narrators of Muhammad, Abu Hurairah, the most prolific companion who narrates hadith, according to Uthman. That's what he said there. And he said, and so that guy who's like the most prolific narrator of hadith, his best guy is Saeed. and then to SNEAKO, he's like, oh, they never met each other.
And remember, he had time to check it.
Yeah.
He came prepared. They knew what happened with Sheikh Asim. He came with the story. Like, I don't accept any Muslim defense of this. Like, oh, he just made a mistake. Like, it's not just one mistake. Everything, when we were watching it, our mouths were open. Everything he said was wrong.
Yeah.
What he said about Haythami was wrong. What he said about the chain being broken was wrong. What he said about it not being Sahih was wrong. What he said about Sahih Muslim was wrong. What he said about the different versions was wrong. Even the weak part that he thought was weak,
it wasn't that part.
It wasn't that part, and it actually helps the supremacy argument.
Yeah.
So he showed up prepared to lie. He knew what the objection was. He showed up prepared to lie, and then combined that with like not even knowing how to quote the verse and so on.
Yeah, it just shows
and
you.
His Arabic was terrible.
Yeah, it just shows you that this guy, he has no problems lying. So not only did he, completely lie about the chain, and that chain is authentic according to many, many, many Muslim scholars. We're actually looking up today, like all the different scholars, and we were like debating about, do we include this, do we include that? But there's just so many of them that say it's authentic. It's like crazy. We saw like a scholar from Al-Azhar Hadith department says it's authentic Hadith, saying that the people of Yemen are the best of people. Many different scholars of hadith saying that. So for Uthman to weaken it and say Al-Haythami, oh yeah, he's like, for him to put in Al-Haythami's mouth that Abu Hurairah never met Sa'id bin al-Musayyab is crazy. That's actually crazy.
So he actually just attributed something to Al-Haythami that he never said. And remember, if it was a weak chain, Sheikh Asim would have said it was weak. Remember what Sheikh Asim said, you don't say if hadith is weak. We tell you. The scholars tell you.
Wow. So Sheikh Asim was entirely correct about what Islam teaches.
Yep.
SNEAKO didn't like it, and so a liar swoops in to tell SNEAKO what he wants to hear, and it's complete deception.
Yeah.
One thing for Sheikh Asim. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I just want to point out, and you could point all of this out. It will not bother Sheikh Uthman's fans even slightly. If you weren't bothered by the footnote, if you weren't bothered by faking a hate crime against himself, if you weren't bothered by the adultery with his friend's wife, if you weren't bothered by choking and beating his wife and so on, if you weren't bothered by any of that, you're really going to be bothered by him lying. It's what he does, and you know he does it, and you don't care because it's fine in your religion.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been seeing some of the responses on people on X, by the way, Muslims have been pointing this out too. I was actually surprised that some Muslims have been making some threads, and they were saying very similar things to what we're saying here. Sometimes they would add details or take away details, but basically the same thing, like saying, hey guys, don't take your knowledge from him. And Muslims were coming back against the Muslims like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing going against Uthman publicly? Like,
don't cause division. Don't cause division.
Yeah.
If he lies, keep your mouth shut. It's what we do. Of course our guys lie. It's what they do. And our job is to keep our mouths shut when they lie. You're going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it. People are going to pick up on the fact that he's a liar, and we can't have that. Wow. Wow.
I mean, one thing I like about Sheikh Asim is that he would never fabricate a chain or pretend something is a hadith when it isn't, or say a hadith is weak when it's strong. He just said, so what?
Or squirt ketchup all over himself and say that he got stabbed by the kuffar.
He has dignity. He thinks it's the truth, and he says, yeah, take it.
I wonder if he's going to respond to this, because this was all directed towards him. So I wonder if he's ever going to respond to like Uthman, kind of coming at him like this and just complete fabricating everything, like all the mistakes he made. I wonder if he'll respond to it. I'm not sure if he will, but I wonder if he will.
Yeah, he might not even really be paying attention, because he's talking to all those guys. He's like, I don't know who any of you guys are. I have no idea. I don't know who any of you guys are. But maybe people could push it and start posting videos. Sheikh Uthman humiliates Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, corrects him, exposes his ignorance of hadith, and so on. Might need some pressure on him to get him to respond.
Yeah, and so if you guys want to see like a really in-depth expose of the racism in Islam, we did this with David not too long ago on Godlogic Apologetics. 4 weeks ago or so, and it's called Racism in Islam, and it's on Godlogic Apologetics, and you guys will see a bunch of sources there that if you're talking to a Muslim like SNEAKO who's bothered by racial supremacy, Arab supremacy, Yemeni supremacy, whatever it is in Islam, go to that video, get the sources there, and you guys will have tons and tons of ammunition to show that Islam is an Arab supremacist religion. And even within the Arabs, there's a hierarchy that they have, and we pointed that out as well. And then there's tons of racism as well that we get into as well. So, yeah.
And this is a chance for you guys to see how much Muslims lie. Imagine if he's lying on record on the internet, where you can actually check. This knowledge, by the way, is available online if you check. Imagine how much they lie offline when there's no recording. Like, he's acting like he's in the middle of the desert, like we can't check. And it's such blatant lies that are very easy. Like, even in English, if you write Sa'id al-Musayyib and Abu Huraira, you get like
the Wikipedia page.
English pages will tell you they're related, they're in-laws. Yeah. And he's just saying they're never met.
Oh, so you're pointing out, like, if this is what he'll say in a video and live when he's prepared, how much do you think this guy lies when the cameras aren't rolling? And I pointed out in the past, one of the problems with people like Tate and so on is manipulators will manipulate their fans, but your fans end up conditioning you in return. In other words, a manipulator, let's say, tells a bunch of lies in order to deceive his followers. But the followers believe all the lies and they love him and cheer him on for it, which convinces him that it's totally fine and that it works and that it's the way to get what you want. So the manipulator and the liar get programmed that they can get away with this, and they never get exposed for it and never get called out for it because their fans will defend them. So that's an issue with like someone like Andrew Tate. He can come out and say, yes, this is what I did. Yes, this is how I treated it. Yes, this is how I got all these, this is how I duped all these girls into becoming my webcam girls and stuff like this, and I get them to fall in love with me, and then this is the step-by-step process he uses to dupe them into doing sex work for him, which once he finds out that's one of the definitions of trafficking, he suddenly changes to, no, I never did any of that. It's all just made up. It's a matrix attack. And his fans, when he was originally explaining how he traffics these girls, his fans cheer for him. Yes, he's so strong. He's so based. Then when he turns around and says, nope, it's all a lie. The matrix is attacking me. They go, yes, it's a matrix attack. What does that do to him? What that does to him is I can say anything right now. Tomorrow I can come back, say the exact opposite. Then I can say something else. Then I can say the exact opposite. And my fans will always cheer me no matter what. It takes away any concept of like consequences for your actions. It takes away any concept of accountability. You come to believe you can just lie as much as you want, and because you always get away with it. And your fans don't care. What do you care if someone else is calling you out, as long as your fans, your community, doesn't care at all? So that's where Sheikh Uthman is. He knows he can go out and commit adultery right in front of his fans. They do not care. He can lie. He can make up anything he wants. His fans do not care. And so the result is what we see now. He can just make things up anytime he wants. Zero consequences in his community, because his community will cheer for him no matter what. And if another Muslim points it out, they'll say, hey, what are you doing? You're causing division in the Ummah when we need unity. This is Ummah. This is Islam, man.
Yeah. And so one of the contrasts we kind of wanted to make with this it's found in the Bible in John chapter 20, and a lot of people are familiar with the Apostle Thomas and doubting Thomas and this story here. And what we wanted to kind of take away for people like SNEAKO, who SNEAKO has these doubts, and instead of the sheikh saying, hey, get out of my house, you're no second chances for you, you can't have any doubts at all in Islam. Islam does actually require you to have full, you can't question at all. Actually, the Quran literally tells you, chapter 5 verse 101, 102.
No questions.
Don't ask questions. If you do, people before you ask questions and they left the faith. So we want to show you like how the Lord Jesus handles doubt and amongst even one of the apostles. And so if you want, you guys can like read the whole story here. But the summary is that Thomas, he didn't get to witness the risen Jesus the first time when the others did. And so they told him about it, like, look, we saw Jesus. And he's like, well, unless I see his hands and I see the nail marks and, I put my fingers in there and I touch, I'm not going to believe. Put hands into his sides, I'm not going to believe. So the Lord appears and he says, hey, take your finger, reach in. You have doubts? Here, I have answers. And then Thomas, when his doubts are answered, he goes, my Lord and my God. And the Lord Jesus blesses him. Blessed are you. And also, blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. So, the point here is that when you have doubts and you get answers, it will strengthen your faith in Christianity. You'll find the answers. You'll know, this is strength. I mean, a lot of Christians can testify. They might have had questions. They might have doubts. When they found the answers out, they will tell you that their faith was strengthened, that they were able to, had a deeper foundation, and they were able to answer and help other people with those same doubts. In Islam, though, you're not encouraged to talk about your doubts. You're not encouraged to tell people about your doubts. You're discouraged from it, and you're actually told not to doubt. Don't question anything at all. Just have this blind faith. But the Lord actually, the Lord will encounter you. It says in Isaiah, come, let us reason together. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, let us reason together. So in Christianity, your questions are welcomed. You can reason, you can have discussions. And when you get those answers, it will, just like Thomas, it strengthened my Lord and my God. It will strengthen your faith. And, blessed are you. Yeah.